Now I know I just made a video about how Americans are in droves leaving America and visiting and in many cases permanently staying in other places and other countries. And they really are. This is true. It's still happening. And I'm assuming it's going to be happening for the rest of 2023. And trust me, I'm not mad at this. I want to see more Americans get out and explore more of the world, get more world in them. It's what I did. It's what many others just like me did. Do it. And for the rest of 2023, it doesn't look like that there'll be a problem with that happening. But hold up. Come 2024, my fellow Americans, you ain't going nowhere. That is without this new thing that Europe wants you to have. Speaking specifically on the American passport, for the longest time, Americans have had liberty to almost 200 countries where they don't need a visa to enter and stay for a little while. Countries in Europe, here in Germany where I live, is also included. You can come to Germany for up to 90 days. You do not need a visa. You can stay, but on the 91st day, you must be out of the country. And now that's been a good thing up until this point, and I can attest to that. I've been to many countries where I've gotten to stay for long periods of time, relatively long periods of time, and not had to do any extra paperwork or get anything like a visa for me to stay. So I know how convenient that is. But I have indeed been to other countries where I have had to get extra documentation and paperwork in order to stay. So I know that that can kind of be a pain too. So here we are, Europe is implementing a new thing. This article is speaking directly about Americans, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is going to be for other countries as well. It's a new program where Europe is going to require Americans to fill out some extra paperwork along with submitting a small fee along with having a valid passport in order to enter anywhere in Europe, despite your age. So this from cntraveler.com. United States passport holders have long traveled throughout most of the world without having to worry about visa applications. American travelers currently have a visa-free access to over 104 destinations worldwide, which rank the U.S. passport as the 8th most powerful passport in the world. I also did a video on how Germany was the most powerful passport in the world. Check it out at the end of this one. But all those things are set to change come next year, 2024, as the European Union prepares new travel document requirements for American tourists. The new regulations are called the European Travel Information and Authorization System, ETIAS for short, and when the system launches in early 2024, it'll require all visitors who currently travel to Europe visa-free, such as citizens from the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., so it will be for more than just Americans, to apply for travel authorization and receive approval prior to departure. This is very similar to having to get a visa. To me, it sounds in every sense of the word like a visa. I don't know why they're not calling it a visa. I don't know why they're choosing to call it something else. And hopefully this article outlines why they're even implementing it, because I don't know why they would be even throwing this out there just so suddenly like this. The ETIAS is not a visa in the traditional sense, okay? It only requires a quick online application with approval delivered by email. In order to receive authorization, visitors must fill out an online form providing details about their basic biographical information, travel plans, and travel history, as well as other security questions. Most applicants will be granted travel authorization within an hour. But if further checks are required, and I wonder what further checks would be required or what would prompt further checks to be required, the process could take up to 96 hours. If it were me, I would plan for the 96 hours. I would make my plans as if the 96 hours was the standard amount of time that it would take. Because could you imagine if you did not and you planned on it taking the 1 hour that they said minimum that it could take, but it ended up taking the 96 hours, and then that screwed up your plans, your flights and travel plans and all that stuff? I would plan on the 96 hours. The application costs €7 and is required for all travelers regardless of their age. Once approved, this authorization is valid for multiple entries over the course of 3 years or until the traveler's passport expires. Okay, so it looks like you would only have to do it once and it's good for 3 years if I read that correctly. I'm still a little confused at why they would just start this in the first place. Like, is there some kind of security issue happening? Is fear kicking in of Americans in and of themselves? That's kind of messed up. Although many Americans were apprehensive about waiting on another travel document, as more details about the ETIAS becomes available, many travelers are expressing relief at the simplicity of the process. It does make me happy that people aren't complaining about it and, starting some kind of crazy boycott thing or ban thing or outrage, selective outrage, if you will, over the thing. It looks like most people are okay with it as long as they get to do their traveling. Maybe it's the fact that it's so cheap, and maybe it's the fact that it's not something that's going to take up a bunch of their time, and maybe it's the fact that it's done online. Maybe a combination of those three process methods makes it something that they really don't feel like they should be complaining about, because they're still going to get what they want in the end. Unless you got some kind of security issue behind you that's going to cause them to further dig into your background and stuff like that, there shouldn't be a worry. So this is a quote from a said Alexa Moore. Honestly, the buzz around this on social media made me a little nervous, but after doing some research, that initial shock definitely subsided. So this is a frequent traveler who visits Europe for both business and leisure at least 2 to 3 times per year. And she says, it's still easy for us to travel to Europe. It's just one more step we have to think about before our trip. This person is taking it in stride and doesn't seem to be ready to complain or cause a fit about it. And I guess that's a good thing. The authorization will be required for travel to all ETIAS member countries, which fall into one of the 4 categories. Full Schengen members like France, Spain, Italy, European Free Trade Association countries like Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland, future Schengen members such as Bulgaria and Cyprus, plus European microstates like Andorra and Monaco. So that's a lot of inclusiveness right there. So that's something to think about for people who plan on going to any of the places. And that's not the full list. There's way more countries that you need to be aware of. All right, here we go. The goal of ETIAS is to tighten border security as well as digitally screen and track travelers entering and leaving EU countries. That sounds kind of weird for it to be America and Australia and Canada. I'm not going to put any countries on the spot, but it seems like that would be something that they would implement for other countries, if you know what I mean, that have the problem of people overstaying. I don't think Americans are known for overstaying. Same with Canadians and Australians. I don't think. I've never done that research. It just doesn't seem like that would be a problem there. Its purpose and application process are similar to the Electronic System for Travel Authorization program for visitors headed to the U.S., a fact that has also made people more understanding of the new requirement. Okay, so it seems like this isn't something that's new. It seems like maybe other countries do it, namely America. It's not something I knew about. Another quote says, I'm bummed about it, but it does seem easy enough. That's a quote by a one Nikki Post, who is a travel blogger and YouTuber and has spent extensive time in Europe. She goes on to say that it's only fair since the US makes it more complicated for Europeans and people of other nationalities to enter the US. So apparently the US has been doing this already. It's not something I'm aware of. As Europe gets ready to roll out its new program, it is important to note that the length of time that Americans can spend in Europe as a tourist is not changing. All right, so the 90 days isn't changing. U.S. passport holders are allowed to stay up to 90 days within a 180-day period. Any stay longer than 90 days, a special visa is required. This is stuff that we all should know already. At the moment, the exact date when the new travel authorization will become a requirement is still unclear. It is suspected that there will be a bit of chaos when it does launch, but also that this new program will ultimately not deter anyone from traveling to Europe. One more quote. Initially, we see more videos on social media and reports of people forgetting to apply for the ETIAS and possibly not being able to go. But that's the norm anytime we get a new travel requirement in place. This person also goes on to say, I also think the pandemic travel has actually helped people be a little more prepared for the possibility of new systems and requirements being in place, like having to submit test results, health information, and other documentation in preparation for entry even to a visa-free country. So apparently this is being accepted well. This is the first I've heard about it. I thought it was brand new, but like I read, apparently Americans have been doing this for a while. I never knew anything about it. And it looks like people that they've ran this by, or people that they've told that this is going to happen, people that do a lot of traveling into Europe, aren't really worried about it. I'm not making this video for it to be a deterrent. I'm just making a video to make Americans aware, and everybody else who this will affect, to make you aware that the European Union is implementing a new thing. €7, yeah, it's €7 that you wouldn't have spent otherwise, but As the person said, you would think that during the pandidly, people would be used to being inconvenienced and having to do extra steps and pay extra for stuff anyway. Over the last 2 to 3 years, over that mess, one way or another, we've had to pay something, whether it be time or physical products or medicals, something. We've had to pay something. So to all the countries that this will affect, get out there and travel for the rest of this year, because come 2024, things will change and you will have an extra step. But still continue to travel, especially you, my fellow Americans. Oh, and this is the video I just made about Americans leaving. This is a video I made about the German passport. And this is a video YouTube thinks you might like. Click on something